Hello and welcome to Will Do Words. We're your hosts, Carly
and Zoe. So, Carly,
Yes.
what is your favorite word at the moment?
Ooh,
Oh, in Spanish.
in Spanish. Okay, because that really opens up to a world of possibilities.
Yeah.
One of my favorite words in Spanish is saltamontes.
Saltamontes.
It's the way it just rolls off your tongue. So that means grasshopper. So literally, like to jump in the mountain, right? Salta, which is to jump, and montes, montañas.
Yeah.
So a grasshopper, but I guess it's a mountain jumper. But the bug, insect, grasshopper. What is your favorite word at the moment in Spanish?
I do always love a good bicicleta.
Okay, nice.
Very simple, very easy, but I just like the cadence of the word, the bicicleta. Yeah, it's bicycle in case anybody wasn't aware. Bicicleta, I could go on for hours though talking about that. Fortunately, that's kind of what we're doing today though, right?
Yes, we are talking about how to communicate, right? We love a good chat. And moving abroad kind of opens you up to the possibility of learning a different language. So we have picked a country that doesn't speak our native language of English. So there's some fun challenges in learning the language of the country that we're in.
Baptism by fire, absolutely.
Quite literally, I would say that is the best definition of it.
So yeah, today we're going to chat about some of our challenges, and our laughs, and our failures, and when our mental translate just does not work.
No. In either language, really.
Yeah, because that is a thing.
Yeah.
So buckle up.
And let's settle in.
Cool. So I'll start us off just because I've got a lot of words to say. I haven't used my word count today yet.
We have a lot of notes because this is something that we've been talking about for quite some time.
Before the podcast was even a thing.
Yes, I think this is a very good bonding experience for people in a different country. You find people that speak your native language and who are also learning a second language. You're like, oh my goodness, did you have the same experience? And you're like, oh, yes. So I think that's a good conversation starter if you're looking to meet new friends in a foreign country.
Just listen out for the people that speak your mother tongue and
and be like,
make a beeline for them.
make fun of yourself speaking your second language, because I'm sure that the majority of people who are speaking in first or second or third language have some kind of similar story.
Absolutely. So both of us, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm pretty sure both of us studied Spanish before moving to Spain, right?
Yes.
So I don't know how long you guys have been out of the classroom, but they don't really teach you certain words out of the classroom. Swearing on the no-hit list. Also, slang is not really in the no-hit list. And moving to Spain, regional slang is very different as well.
Yes. So there's a very big difference between textbook Spanish and your street Spanish, I think, for most languages, but specifically in our region, right, in Murcia, they say that this is one of the most difficult accents. Not the most difficult, but one of the more challenging accents to understand and to learn.
I vouch for that 100%.
I think the other one that's really difficult is the Andalusian accent.
Come from Almeria.
Yes.
I won't understand you. I'm serious. I will try. I will try my hardest.
Yes. So I think we've thrown ourselves even deeper into the fire of trying to learn.
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny, right? Because we didn't throw ourselves in, but it was kind of like I jumped in, dressed up like I came out of the 1800s, the way I was speaking when I first arrived in Spain, because I was so proper.
You had your pinkies up.
Yes,
very
pinkies
proper.
up, and oh gosh, I was only wearing a skirt and I would button up shirt and, everything very proper, because that's what you get taught, right?
Yeah.
Is this is the proper way to speak Spanish, not the street way to speak Spanish.
Right.
But to everyone's credit that encountered me in those first few weeks, I do apologise and thank you very much to all of those individuals. No one laughed me out of anywhere, even though I was very proper, very everything. And saying please for everything. I've quickly caught on that Spanish people, please is not really...
I don't think it's used as deeply as we use it in our English language.
No.
At least where I'm from, it's kind of like please and thank you after everything.
Mm-hmm.
Probably similar to where you are as well. But here it's not as much of the formalities.
No, picking up the phone, tell me.
Yes.
Dime.
Dime.
And it's
You're like,
just
oh,
like that.
okay.
Dime. And I go,
Okay, I'll tell you.
I'll tell you what you want to know. Do you want to know my passwords for my bank account?
Yes.
Yeah, so salutations are quite different. Dime.
Yes.
Also, another fun one that I do not understand, I don't think I ever will understand, is saying adios. When you see someone in the street
Yes.
for the first time that day, you don't say hello,
No.
you say goodbye.
It took me a very long time to get used to that. Sometimes I still catch myself being like, and I can't get the words out because I'm like, do I say adios or do I say hello?
Yeah.
Hola, I don't know.
Yeah.
So you just kind of got to go with your gut instinct, but it does take a while to change that kind of instinct.
Because you do it without thinking.
Yeah, because when you're learning a language, what you're doing first, at least in my experience, is you learn the words literally. So you're translating literally in your mind until you kind of flip that switch where you're then thinking in the other language to know
Game changer when that happens.
right, these are the correct ways of saying this one phrase. But if you were to translate it directly back into English, it sounds very silly or would not be the way that we would necessarily say something.
Yeah, no. But something you were telling me about it has already gone from my mind. The manzana.
Dar la manzana.
Sí, dar la manzana.
Like when you're walking around the block, right? So we would say, I'm taking a walk around the block, which means like you're walking around in your neighborhood or something. But would that translate...
Blocks, we don't have them.
Okay. So what we would translate their expression is to give the apple, right?
Yeah.
Dar la manzana.
Yeah.
So I'm giving the apple, but...
Doesn't equate.
Right. Not even the same shape.
No.
But that's okay.
But it gets even simpler than that. Like I remember saying to someone once, can you take me to school?
Yes.
And I said, I translated it in Spanish, literally, can you take me to school? Oh no, can you drive me to school?
Right.
He said, yeah, I can drive. I can drive my car to school. I can drive your car to school. I can drive any car to school. And everybody else around me was laughing at this point. And I'm like, yeah, but can you drive me to school? And he's like, I can drive my car to school. I could even drive a bus if I really wanted, or a bike. But you don't say that in Spanish. You say, can you take me to school? Like
Right.
your baggage.
Something so simple that you don't necessarily think of the meaning that we're using in the same way because we have multiple meanings, or even just the same phrase or word that we have in English, right? Smart, we use the word smart, but we also have the word intelligent, but they use the word inteligente, right? So they use the closer word, but we've just created another word that means the same to use. So we're just
my gosh.
overcomplicating it.
Curious.
For ourselves too. Yeah.
Curious. A Spanish person loves the word curious.
Yeah.
And I'm curious why everything else is curious over here. But there's some words that just don't translate either way. If it's from Spanish to English or English to Spanish, they just don't quite work. And you don't know that stuff when you first get here. You just And the ones that catch me are the ones that I just say it with a Spanish accent and an E on the end and hope that it's gonna work.
Yes. There's a lot of times that it does work.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
had my students actually like try to do that into English, and then one student got it very correct, and I was like, yes. She was like, really? And I was like, yes, that is exactly correct. That happened last week. But I think something important to know is that when you do come to, Spain, for instance, or any other foreign country, that you're going to sound silly. You're going to make mistakes.
Yes.
I think that's the whole part of learning. For me, when I first got here, I was very nervous to speak to people because I know that I wasn't perfect. And I was just nervous to talk because I was like, I don't know, someone's going to judge me or I'm going to make a mistake. But it was some other friends that I was here with whose Spanish was good, and just watching them do it without fear or embarrassment, I was like, well, you know what? If they can do it, I can do it too, because I saw their improvements when they didn't have this like hesitation behind it. And then I was like, okay, so somewhere the flip switch, and I was like, okay, you know what? I just gotta do it. And especially too in our small town, there are few English speakers. There are some, but the majority are Spanish speakers.
Yeah.
So you've really just kind of immerse yourself, and you're like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna make these mistakes. I'm gonna sound silly, but you improve because either someone will correct you, or
They won't understand.
They won't understand what they're like, huh? What? You're like, no, I know I said it correct. Or like, you think you're saying it correctly, but they will just not understand you until you get that phrasing. But a lot of it too is listening to things that are around you, and listening, reading, mixing it all with different ways of learning, to then kind of piece every little bit together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think the big difference in the textbook versus the conversational is that now you're learning things without the written words. So there's sometimes I learn a word like cojín, which is pillow, and then months later, I had only used that word in conversation, saw the word in the store, and I was like, huh, what word is that? And I was like, oh, wait. I tried to sound it out and looked at the picture, and I was like, oh, okay. Oh, interesting. That's how you spell it. I wouldn't have even thought about that. But it's kind of like just the interesting ways that you piece everything together.
Yeah. And interesting, I didn't know that you were nervous to speak Spanish and stuff, because I was complete opposite. I was like, well, I learned it. I don't speak it well enough, but I can speak it, so I'm just gonna jump in, but like guns blazing and have a whirl.
Yeah.
I was that one in the friend group. The other ones just kind of sat back and let me do the ordering of the food and whatnot, because that's another thing, is you have to order food.
Yes. The most important thing is the food.
Yes.
Learn the names of the food.
I learned very quickly the ability and I guess it's something that it's a skill that I already have, but to do it in another language, to talk around the word that you want to say when you don't know the word.
Yes.
Like imagine you're playing Articulate or 5 Second Rule or something like that. You have this word, you're not allowed to say it, so you use everything in its vicinity to try and explain
It's
the word.
like Heads Up.
Yeah.
The game where you like flip up and down.
Yeah, and it's doing that, but it's having the vocabulary to be able to do that in another language. So very quickly I cottoned on that. Okay, I can describe this word.
Yes.
I can tell you what this thing looks like. I can tell you what color it is. I can tell you what size it is. I can tell you where it is.
Yes.
But I don't know what the word is.
Yes.
And that was that was like 57 levels unlocked straight away when I was able to do that.
I think that's such a good point.
Yeah.
It's for sure something that I use every single day. I think there's like, the thing that you use for this thing, or you do this with it, or like even to mining activities.
Yeah.
You can't even find that vocabulary word that you're looking for to describe it. But yeah.
The amount of car rides that I've been in with only Spanish speaking people trying to yo no sé en inglés ni en español y yo no sé. Pero voy a intentar. I'm gonna try because I do not know. I can't say any language right now. And that's such a thing, right? If you're stuck and you're thinking in Spanish and you're trying to trying to find the words in Spanish, and then you flip that switch in your brain back to English, and you can't. You're 5 miles ahead of your brain. Your brain's still stuck in Spanish mode. You're trying to get it to go back, and you can't find word in Spanish or in English.
Yes.
And it's just something in there smoking. You can probably smell it because it just
I've seen
does
it
not compute.
on Instagram where it's like where you're bilingual, like you say bye-bye to all languages.
Maybe trilingual, you get better. You can try
to learn all of the languages. That's such a good point, because I think now too, when you are immersing yourself in this second language or different language than your native tongue, you start living the experiences in that language, right? So I've had experiences where I'm surrounding myself with all Spanish speakers, so we're all speaking Spanish. So this lived experience that I'm having in my brain is in Spanish. The jokes or the funny things, the idioms, the expressions, those are all in Spanish. So when I go to call my mom to say, hey mom, I did this today, like I want to chat about it, I find myself having to take a break or a breath to try to find those words in English.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to translate now the situation that you've lived in a different language to make it make sense in your native language, which is such an interesting concept, I think.
Yeah, and it still takes me a long time to be able to, and sometimes if I'm tired, I'm just like, look,
Yeah.
this is what they said, it doesn't sound right, but you get the general gist of the idea, and we're just going to leave it there, because it is so hard sometimes to translate the experience, not just the...
Exactly.
Or translate the meaning, not just the words.
Right. I think that's a big difference between translating and translating meaning, right?
Yeah.
It's that lived experience, and there's phrases that we don't necessarily have in English to even describe this feeling that you're having. But it's really cool because then having now these two, you're able to open your eyes and your experiences to having something so much more meaningful, which is really cool.
Absolutely. I'm not thinking in Spanish or English. I don't think I've got anything going on behind these eyes right now.
Which, you know what? It happens a lot of the time too. Like
I think it's that like the mental tax, right? Is your for me, I'm living in as you said, I'm living in both English. I'm living in Spanish. At home, I'm speaking English. Outside, I'm speaking Spanish, and sometimes I do just have a blank white screen in my head and nothing's going on, no words, no nothing, because it's just pesado. It's heavy, it's a lot,
and sometimes when you do feel tired, your brain just kind of just shuts off. It's like I can't even listen or understand right now in any language. I just need some time.
Sometimes I'm not even tired. That just happens if I'm really interesting, but I found that if it's loud, even if it's speak like say I'm speaking to you, we're speaking Spanish. If it's loud, I'm not going to be able to understand what you're saying. Even though I know what you're saying, but my brain's still it's processing Spanish as a sound rather than as speech.
Yes.
And there's another sound going on, and there's one over here, there's one over here, there's one over here as well. So it's like it's oversaturation. And the amounts of times that I've just zoned, like intentionally but not intentionally zoned out and been like, they're speaking Spanish. End of. And then I get like a little bit down the line, I'm like, wait, I speak Spanish. I know what they're saying. I should be listening to them.
Yes.
But sometimes it's just like the computer says, no, we're not doing that anymore.
I think I found that a lot in my first year, especially sitting in the teacher's lounge, where there's a lot of different conversations happening, and you're like, okay, I can hear this. Oh, I picked up a few words. Oh, okay, now I heard this word that I understand over here. And it's kind of like bouncing your brain back and forth, where it's a little easier in English to kind of like piece everything together because your brain's automatically working that way.
It's like, imagine you're a dog in a mosh pit, right?
Right.
And you've got 5 owners and they're all calling your name, they're all going from different directions. You can't understand anything, everything else is just noise, but you can hear these people calling your name.
Yes.
So it's like,
yes. For those like key words that you have already learned, can understand. It's interesting, but like when you are putting yourself and you're like, okay, I'm going to listen, I'm going to try to understand this, slowly it stops becoming as overwhelming.
And it does, I didn't notice it not becoming overwhelming, but I just noticed that I wasn't overwhelmed. Like it just sort of gradually happened. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's still days in the supermarket where I'm doing something and someone's going blah, 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 and I just look at them with a blank face and they go, blah, 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 blah. And they'll just try a little bit slower, and I'm like,
Yes.
yeah, supermarkets. I was terrified to go to the supermarket for a long time.
Yes,
yeah.
I'm still kind of terrified to go into the supermarket sometimes. Specifically the meat counter to ask for the sizes.
I don't go into the meat
and
counter because
the-
it's too
the
hard.
cheeses and how many slices of cheese I have.
Ironically, though, my partner who doesn't speak doesn't speak Spanish, loves going to the butchers. he can tell them what he wants. I think it must be a sort of situation.
A
but-
point and
Point and
thumbs
thumbs
up.
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot that.
We're
The
recording.
microphone doesn't see us.
Yes. Yeah. It's also interesting too, having now come back multiple years and then spending the time at home in the summer, going back, immersing myself into my childhood town, right? So I'm going back and kind of then flipping the switch back, like, oh, we're all speaking English. But then having those, yes, it's a little bit of a sigh, but then, like, sigh of relief. But then realizing that also in English, my native language, I make a lot of mistakes. Like, grammar mistakes, where in Spanish I'm like, oh my god, I just made a grammar mistake. Like, oh, I know this was a little bit funny that I said it. But then when I went home and I listened to people speaking around me, I was like, oh,
You speak awfully.
yeah, not grammatically correct.
Yeah.
But like I understood, and we're getting to the point. And
So
then
true.
yeah, it's kind of a wake up call. You're like, oh, well, if I can do this in my first language, then obviously I'm going to do it in my second language or my third or fourth, because this is just the way that human communication works. Like, we're going to make mistakes. We're not perfect all the time. So it's a cool little reminder that, like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. I'm not going to remember words in English either, which happens a lot of the time. I'm like, I don't know that word. I can't search for it in my brain right now.
Guys, my mind is blowing by this because I know it, but no one's reminded me of it recently,
Yeah.
and it's so right.
Yeah.
When we're speaking in English, we do not speak properly.
No.
Because it would be like we came straight out of the 1800s and we were speaking,
Right.
and you know,
Very Jane
Same,
Austen
yeah,
or
yeah.
Shakespeare.
no
or-
one would know what on earth we were saying.
Yeah.
And so of course we don't speak it properly. And of course
And there's so many different dialects and accents, right? You can
trying to translate between ourselves sometimes doesn't work.
Yeah, I
What's a gazebo
just-
for you?
a gazebo. It's the place. It's like a wooden structure,
No.
and you can, like a bandstand, you can play under it. No, what's a gazebo for
A
you?
gazebo is a temporary structure that you can put up and take down.
Well, it's a tent.
No, a tent
Okay.
has sides.
No, a tent is not. Well, it can have sides. It can have sides.
Okay, back.
Okay.
See, but you see what I mean?
Right. So
We
like.
don't translate in English.
No, yeah. So
Like,
sometimes I will find myself staring at her with the eyebrow raising. Like, can you please repeat yourself? She repeats herself, and I go.
still doesn't compute.
Yes. So that leads into another thing, is that learning a language, well, really in any language, your social emotional cues. At
Oh
least
my gosh,
I
yeah.
have found mine have gotten very in tune. Like the Madagascar penguin, like smile and nod, boys, smile and nod. It's like taking account of the different people who you're talking to and their reactions, their like little laughs or their smile and their oh no faces, and just kind of like mimicking and either frowning and nodding or like smiling and nodding or kind of giggling in the right time. Like,
It's like that dashboard from Inside Out. Right?
Yes.
And they're all like, what are they doing? What do they look like they're doing? What are they thinking?
which also can sometimes be hard here in Spain, because
my
sometimes they speak like they're so angry.
And they use their hands, and it's just, and they speak like this, and I don't know what's going on, and then they go, "Tá luego."
And you're like, I just completely
What?
misread the situation. I thought she was really mad.
We're
But
not angry.
no, we're joyful. Okay, let me laugh. Okay, great. Excellent.
Yeah.
But that's something that's also a huge part about communication, or learning a different language. How to communicate in your second language is also kind of how you respond to what is being said to you and how you receive it. And if you don't understand, just like smiling and nodding until eventually you understand.
It's two things are going to happen. They're going to think you're off your rocker, or they might recognise that you don't actually understand what's going on.
Yes, yes.
They'll try and explain it another way.
I have some friends that will say to me, like, I know when you don't understand me because there's this look in your eyes that you get. the blank stare a little, and then they try to adjust the way or explain themselves a little bit different. I'm like, oh, interesting. Because I think with other people too that speak English to me as their second language, not all, but some conversations I've had, you're like, oh, okay, let me just say this in a different way, and then they understand. But I think that's another big part, is that just assessing who you're talking to. And
Absolutely.
adjusting what you say or how you say it, but that's just really in any situation.
And on that note, like having been the person I'm always learning Spanish. I have a level of fluency, but I'm still learning more and more.
Yeah.
And then also listening to people who are learning English. Well, basically just people that's not their mother tongue, right? The people who stop you the minute you make an error and correct it, versus the people who wait till you finish your thought and then repeat it.
Yeah.
For me, if someone stops me in the middle of what I'm saying and says, that's wrong, this is how you should say it. Because remember, Spanish people, they're very abrupt. Direct. Direct. Not intentionally, not nasty, but just like...
No, it's just the way that they are.
And, you know, they want to help. And it's amazing, don't get me wrong, but if you're going to jump in and tell me that, I'm going to lose everything else that... all the other characters